Are you a betting man? Woman? You like to gamble? Well, in astronomy, they like to gamble. They like to think that it's a very, very happy, fortunate coincidence that it just so happens that the sun crosses the galactic equator on June 21st and December 21st, which is the time of the solstice. The time when the sun is the highest declination angle in the sky. And you see, they believe that the Earth is spinning and precessing, making one full cycle every 26,000 years. And it just so happens that in today's day and age, that sun crosses over that galactic equator on the solstices. So you'd have to conclude that out of 365.25 days out of the year, 2 of those days, they're going to cross the galactic equator during the solstice. So that's 2 divided by 365.25, or 0.54%, or 199 times out of 200, the sun would not cross that galactic equator on the solstice. But it just so happens that it's crossing the galactic equator currently in this day and age, in our lifetime. Would you bet on that? You have 200 to 1 odds. Would you bet on that? That's what they want you to believe. Do you think it's much more reasonable to believe that the Earth is not spinning, it's not precessing, that the sun and the moon, that the sun and the celestial sphere are orbiting inside a concave Earth, where there's a literal ball of stars, the celestial sphere, and that celestial sphere is actually divided by a band that we call the Milky Way. It's not a spiral galaxy, it's a band. It divides the celestial sphere, so when that sun goes in one hemisphere, that celestial sphere, it's going to go in one northerly direction, and then when it crosses the band, it goes south. So the band performs a function of governing the sun north and south. And there's no precession. And so during every solstice, it's always happening on June 21st and December 21st. I put my odds on that. I'd bet on that happening. It's much more reasonable. It's much more reasonable. Is it just me? But that's what they want you to believe. That's what they don't really like to emphasize. You don't hear people talking about that. Oh, look! It just so happens in today's day and age, the sun is crossing the galactic equator during the solstice. 400 years ago, when Kepler was around, it wasn't crossing the galactic equator during the solstice. Yes, it was. I guarantee you it was. That's why they have to move the goalposts. They call it J2000. They have to recalculate every 50 years the right ascension, the declination of the sun, based on their presupposition that the Earth is precessing over a 26,000 year cycle. It's ludicrous, guys. It's ludicrous. You see, I put my odds on that the sun is always crossing the galactic equator during June 21st and December 21st, and that is the time of the solstice. That's a 99.5% chance of that happening throughout the millennia in times past and in times future. I put my odds on that. I got a 99.5% chance that, let's say 100 years from now or 500 years from now, if if the sun is still moving inside the Earth, which I doubt it, that the sun would still be crossing over that galactic equator on June 21st and December 21st. Go with that. Go with the odds.
So once again, I go into my favorite conspiracy forum, Godlike Productions, because they love me so much. I mean, they ban me every once in a while, but then they unban me because, you know, obviously they just love me. So I just kidding. They hate my guts. I post heliocentrism is not reasonable. Precession of the equinox is a hoax. Featuring my latest upload where I talk about that. In a nutshell, if there was really precession of the equinoxes and we were on a spinning Earth, Kepler would have said the solstices occurred on June 16th and December 16th, but he said, and observed them on June 21st and December 21st. And my favorite friend, my favorite online astronomy friend, Dr. Astro, otherwise known as Astronomy Live, Mr. Nerd himself, I posted that one. He comes on later. Of course, he's the senior forum moderator. So this guy's I mean, he insults everybody on this forum, obviously, because there's a lot of flat earthers, but also he's just not a very nice person. And he says, precession of the equinox is not a hoax. I observed it myself. And so he has this little video that he uploaded. I watched the video. I'll get to that in a minute here. I'll explain to you what's really going on here. And he's saying wrong. By Kepler's time, the Gregorian calendar was in the process of being adopted. The Gregorian calendar is designed to be more accurate to the true length of the tropical year, including precession. With precession included, the vernal equinox occurred on March 20th. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, they did change the calendar, but that's not what's going on here. There's no precession. I'll get that in a minute here. I'll get to that in a minute here. So I say, so it goes to stand that this day and age, it just so happens that the sun crosses the galactic equator on 1221 and 621. But back in 1602, it crossed on 1216 and 615, or 616 actually. That's what they would think anyway. He goes on to say, solstice is not determined by the date at which the sun crosses the galactic equator, you insufferable idiot. Oh, I'm an insufferable idiot. You're confusing the length of the tropical year with that of a sidereal year. No, it's not unreasonable. The date at which the sun will cross the galactic equator changes over time precisely because of precession. Thanks for proving you don't understand a damn thing. Interesting. I go on to say that what's more reasonable is that there's a slight wobble to the celestial sphere inside the Earth due to lunisolar precession. Pressure fluctuations inside inner space, not center space. And the measured wobble over time, say the last century, has made astronomers conclude and merely project the Earth is precessing over a 26,000-year cycle. But it's still more reasonable to conclude the sun crosses the galactic equator every year, every century, and every millennia on 1221 and 621. And I reply as well here, yeah, I'm aware of that. I'm simply helping you understand that this is a severe coincidence that it just so happens to cross it in this day and age. It's simply unreasonable and illogical. It's a happy coincidence. He goes on to say, no, it isn't, and no, it doesn't. The date of the sun crossing the galactic equator will change over the centuries due to precession. Oh, he's so mad at me. The sun is right where it should be according to my calculations, which include precession. See, in this video, he calculated from J2000 to this date, 17 years, recording the North Star in its relation to the North Celestial Pole. And there was movement, and I'll get to that in a minute. I'll explain to you why that is happening. It's not because the Earth is spinning and precessing. Okay, let's see. Okay, this is his text. And so I just say, okay, so the alignment is just random, right? I highly doubt that. Do you even realize that Hipparchus wasn't even sure about precession? Many believed in trepidation, not precession, and they were right. And that's when he banned me. Oh, I think I got one more in. Oh, then he found out it was me, Stevie, YouTube vid. So you're Stevie. It's a real shame someone didn't shank you in prison. Fuck off, asshole. Yeah, this is the guy who actually said that if I come to his house, he's going to blow my head off with a gun. I have no intention. I have no desire to go to this guy's house. I mean, he's a fucking nerd. And so before the Dr. Aslick NASA banned me from the thread, or from the forum actually, I got him to admit that he agrees it's just a, quote, coincidence. He's well aware of the coincidence that the sun happens to cross the galactic equator on the day of the winter solstice in our lifetimes. It has done so before, thousands of years ago, And we'll do so again thousands of years from now. It just so happens that this day and age is crossing it now, which is a 99.5% chance that it wouldn't, but it does. So I just, thank you very much for admitting this coincidence. My opinion is that this is highly unreasonable, and that's all it's about. It's about common sense and reason. And there is no common sense and reason in modern heliocentric astronomy. And so that's what they're left with. You go to other sites, you find out about this, quote, coincidence. Here's one. It says, quite by coincidence, the ecliptic intersects the galactic equator on or near the June and December solstices. It's just by coincidence, right? Here's another one that says that modern scientific analysis alone can provide no answers to such questions, other than to suggest it's all just a big coincidence. That's right. They cannot provide any answers other than it's just a big coincidence. It's using common sense, people. And I was doing some research, I was trying to find like some data from the 1800s, the 1700s of tracking the sun and seeing if it crossed the galactic equator during the solstices, and I couldn't find any. Maybe I didn't look hard enough, but to me, it might be a big cover-up. The hoax of precession people wanting to cover this fact up, that the sun is always crossing the galactic equator throughout time and into the future. What's really happening, there is a slight, like I said before, there's a slight precession or wobble to the celestial sphere that's inside the concavity of the Earth. And so I have this celestial sphere here in Lightwave, and I show these poles here at the top here. And if I just play the animation here, you see that the magenta pole is actually, that's in the center. So we got the blue pole, the light blue pole, that's actually going around in a counterclockwise direction, indicating that that is the wobble that's happening to the celestial sphere. So there's a precession going on, but it's a celestial sphere. Okay? I mean, just think about it from a logical point of view as well. I mean, from a mass point of view, you have this 8,000 mile wide Earth with different terrain, right? Different elevations, mountains, oceans, and everything. And you're just going to say it's just slightly wobbling. See, they also have what they call the Chandler wobble, which only varies in milliarc seconds, which are like 1/1000th of arc seconds. So it's like tiny, tiny, tiny variation. And so it makes much more sense if this is a celestial sphere, maybe about 2,000 miles wide, that's perfectly levitated inside the concavity of the Earth. It's electrostatically being held there, it's levitating there, and you're getting a slight wobble because the sun and the moon are orbiting around it, causing little pressure pockets like that. So through the centuries, that's what we're going to have, this slight wobble to the celestial sphere. And of course, that is why the sun, you see this magenta line here, that's the galactic equator, and then you also have this arced line here, that's the ecliptic, the path of the sun. It's not the path of the Earth, but the path of the sun. And so right here in the north, it would be June 21st. Interesting here too is that we have the Orion constellation. The arm of Orion is pointing to that little intersection there. They made a big beef about that back in, I think it was in 2012. But anyway, and then the southern side, we have it intersecting over there on December 21st. Every year, maybe, okay, it might fluctuate to the 22nd in some years, December 22nd or June 22nd, but it's always going to stay there. I mean, I talked about trepidation, the sun going back and forth, and they talked about that too as well. Hipparchus, Petrus Afonso, Ptolemy. So that's what's going on. It's much more reasonable, okay? You got a 99.5% chance of the sun being at that intersection all the time, every year. And I'm kind of interested to see how they're going to recalculate things if we get to 2050, because I can guarantee, I put my money on it, that sun is not going to continue to veer away from that galactic equator within the next decades or whatever, if the sun is still moving. Obviously, I don't think it is. I mean, you understand my eschatology. I think the sun's going to stop pretty soon. And that is why I believe modern astronomy is pretty much fucked. And that's why they do these epochs every 50 years. Because they don't want to show year-to-year data, which would still keep the sun at the galactic equator. You know, it's 2017 right now. 2027, 2037, 2047. Got 33 years till the next epoch in 2050. 33, good number. But that's why they don't want to show it. That's why they do it. So I don't know. They're buying time. They're like, oh, if the sun is still moving when 2050 comes out, you know, they're going to say something like, well, the Earth slowing down and it's not precessing as much. We're going through I don't know, some kind of axial decay, whatever they're going to say, but that's why they're fucked. So if you're like an astronomer and you know about this precession hoax, this cover-up that's going on, it's best to come out now, because I just exposed it. I exposed you guys. It's inevitable. It's going to crumble. It's going to fall. It's already falling. So come out, acknowledge me, acknowledge that I'm right, and you'll be better off, you know. Be a good guy instead of a bad guy. Get on my side. Thanks for watching.